Everything that was said when we were driving the car was unscripted. We got talent in Alberta. Definitely this year during that episode was a highlight experience from the entire 19 years. I could put a Cessna down on top of a treetop canopy and walk away from the accident. To have been getting to keep doing it all these years, to me, that's a pretty huge blessing.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Heart in Motion podcast. I'm so thrilled to be talking with Kerry James today. Hi, Kerry.
Hi, how are you today, Stephanie?
I'm great. I am loving season 19 of Heartland. So I'm so appreciative that you've got a few minutes for us to talk and catch up. I mean, you've been on Heartland for so many seasons. So I'm going to kind of ask you to go back a little bit too, if you're okay with that today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've been very fortunate in the States that season 19, we haven't had to wait near as long as when we follow the Canadian release. So it's been really nice for us to kind of follow suit pretty quickly and loving the season. You've been on Heartland since season 2. So I'm curious from your vantage point, what has made this show as successful as it is? I mean, it's the longest running 1 hour drama in Canadian history. That's amazing.
I think the nature of our success is family values, and of course the just the beauty of Alberta and the equestrian rail life. Like I know personally, I think in the world as it is, and even back all the way to season 2, like a lot of those family values, they stay with us despite the way the world is changing. People want to fill up on something that's wholesome, and Heartland is definitely that. And then just the beauty of the prairies and the foothills and the Rockies. It's nothing else. And I've talked to a lot of people around the world that have expressed a lot of appreciation for the show, and I never really considered that 80-90% of the population, um, we live in cities and in work in cubicles. So getting to be where we are and getting to do what we do is sort of an escape for everyone. And I think that's been our bread and butter for a long time.
So crazy that you bring both of those reasons up. It's why I tune in. First of all, I didn't even know about Heartland. Funny story, kind of like follow Kevin McGarry. So I started watching in season 9 when he showed up, didn't know about the show. And then I was like, I've got to go back. And went all the way back to season 1 and watched and have stayed with it for that reason that you can sit down, it's clean, it's family friendly, but I'm a huge traveler, love being out in nature as much as I can be. And I was even going to ask you about that. I've got a friend that lives outside of Edmonton. And so we've been trying for 2 or 3 years for me to get there. And I said, I have to get to that area because it's just so stunning. It's just
You
amazing.
do. I would highly recommend you go see it here. It would be worth it.
Where do I have to go if I'm going to Alberta?
If you're going to Alberta, I think the place that speaks loudest to me, and it's a little bit off the usual tourist route, but it's definitely growing, is you should come right to where I live, Turner Valley, Longview, and Black Diamond. I mean, that's right on the Cowboy Trail, tucked in the foothills. To me, it's the most beautiful place in all of Alberta and maybe the world.
Wow. Well, and I've got it recorded so I can go back and write these places down. That's awesome. So you stepped into Caleb Odell's boots in season 2 during, I think, 2008. Take us back to that first year. You were early on in your career, joining a series that had already been on for a season. What stands out to you about that initial experience?
It was all the whirlwind. I was a very, very young man, extremely filled with a sense of joy and excitement. It was kind of an over the moon sort of sensation, and admittedly, it felt like at that age, like I'd achieved my goals, like I was at some sort of proverbial finish line, having earned the right to be there.
Did that stay true?
We grow up, we change, life becomes more complicated, and our vision becomes better. Um, so certainly it was not a finish line, but it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And to have been getting to keep doing it all these years, to me, that's a pretty huge blessing. It's the best job anyone could ever ask for in their entire lives.
That's amazing. So you said 17 years ago, You mentioned that writing was your favorite part of being on Heartland in
Still
another
is.
interview.
Still is.
Looking at that arc of your time on the show, what were some of the real gifts that this job has given you?
Well, that was the big one right off the bat was just an introduction into the equestrian world. Never even been on a horse before Heartland. I had no idea that it was going to be such an impactful thing in my life, and I transitioned very quickly from sort of a West Coast surfer kid to sort of a full-blown cowboy. Um, it just happens over time, and you end up with the hat and the jean jacket and the whole get up because it's very functional. As much as it's a look, is when you live out there, it's a functional wardrobe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine that the show has brought some amazing friendships as well.
Well, I would say that at this point, after 19 years, the thing that has been the most impactful is the lifelong friendships. Like being as close to Graham and Amber as I am. Like they are family. Amber and her husband, they are my family. And Graham is literally like we don't even say best friend because it doesn't cover it. We're brothers. And
Yeah.
that's been the biggest blessing to have people like that to come in your life. It's very happy.
What a gift. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So IMDb says about 128 episodes that you've now been on Heartland, depending on how many more we see you in season 19. When you look back, which moments on screen, and I know this is a very big question, so just whatever comes to mind, what moments on screen or even behind the scenes really stand out to you?
Oh man, after 19 years, girl, you set me up for a tough one.
You can't get it wrong. There's
Honestly,
so many amazing
do you
moments.
remember the episode with the bathtub when Caleb and I? So Graham and I still talk about that, and the reason we had so much fun is, and Graham's mentioned this in interviews too before, is him and I paired together, like our energy went from here, and then it just would go up, and directors were even warned, like, yo, just so you know, Kerry and Graham, like they can get really into it and pretty carried away. So you have to dial them back. But this was one of those scenes where our energy was was completely spontaneous and it worked so well for the characters in that moment that they just let us be ourselves completely wide open. And so that was ridiculous. I believe Tina Graywall, who was our producer at the time, I was also directing that episode, and I just remember the three of us having such an incredible bond during the filming of that. I can't remember the exact line, but I remember that everything that was said while we were driving the car was unscripted. It was all just us goofing off. And I think Graham said, "Oh, Caleb, you're going too fast." And then I was pretending I could hear him. And I was like, "Yeah, I know, this is rad." And then we crashed. Yeah, it was a really beautiful moment.
Any others that come to mind?
Well, actually, this year, working with Spencer Lord, who is just an absolutely magnificent addition to the cast. The guy just, I think he's elevated everybody's performances these last 2 years. He just brings a really unique and charming attitude towards acting. And I definitely say the caliber of acting in terms of those who are working with him directly, like they're just there's like this maturity we've all
Mhm.
found this year working with him. And him and I spent a lot of time together working this year, especially during an episode where his plane crashed. It was very exciting. So that was him and me in a plane for a full day doing this experience. And yeah, we just had a really, really good bonding experience, and we both just had a lot of fun. So definitely this year, during that episode, was a highlight experience from the entire 19 years.
I definitely want to come back to that moment for sure. Having just actually aired that here in the States, and I also loved those moments with Caleb and Tim in those seasons where they were kind of partnering up a lot of the
Yeah, that was
writing.
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was a blast too. I feel like there was a lot of seasons there where the writers just um I don't know, for whatever reason they just weren't quite sure what to do with Caleb or where he fit in. So there was some seasons where he was in there a lot more, some where he was a lot left. And yeah, there were some introductions to some storylines I wish we'd hashed out a little bit more and maybe looked at where they could have gone in the long run. But ultimately, like working with Chris Potter was always those were some of my favorite days on set. He's a very interesting, very cool guy.
Yeah. And he's directed several.
Many episodes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, extremely talented man.
Yeah. So fans might not realize that you've pitched story ideas for Caleb over the years. What are some of those ideas that you brought forward that actually made it into the show?
Well, I've actually even pitched storylines for other characters. And that's just something, it wasn't, it's not like I was in any way asked by the writers or anything. It was just being interested and
Yeah.
trying to feel like more part of the team. And so, yeah, the whole pilot thing was actually a pitch from my real life because I was interested in getting my CDL and pilot's license. So I was just excited about that. So I was like, hey, this could be an interesting way to involve Caleb in the show, and it also changes his dynamic, allows him to grow up a lot, and it
Yeah.
creates an interesting dynamic between him and Spencer's character Nathan, just because that we're doing such different things,
Yeah.
which I thought would be really interesting. So I was very proud that they used a few of my suggestions.
So, jumping to recent seasons, you're told the show wants to explore Caleb's feelings for Amy.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind when you first heard that they were heading in that direction?
Shit, this is like my best friend in real life, and her husband's a real crack shot. No, I'm so tight with Amber. I thought it would have been a lot of fun. I will say, I don't really think, like, even in the seasons where they were letting them have that moment, I think that the writing, what they chose for Caleb and how he was trying to express his interest, felt, I feel like they never quite took a risk to
Mhm,
allow Caleb and Amy to have actually crossed that line for even a moment. They always
mhm,
pulled that moment
mhm,
away, and they focused too much on Caleb feeling sad about it.
mhm,
So I was
mhm.
honestly a little bit disappointed that they didn't push it a little bit more or push the envelope a bit more. I was hoping they would, even because even for me, it's like it's more interesting to see Caleb fail
Yeah.
at trying to connect with Amy if he's actually put it out there in a more uplifting, more charming, more masculine way. But the way
Yeah.
they wrote him really low tempo. And
Hmm.
they wrote him in a place where he was almost maybe a little bit pathetic. And I didn't enjoy that writing as much. But I mean, of course, like, my job is my job and I crush my job. So if that's what they want, then that's what they're going to get. And I feel
But
like I
I
did justice to that, but I wish they'd explored it a little bit more.
I totally get that. And there's been, when Spencer Lord came on the show and we're introduced to Nathan, and then they go this route where they kind of create these moments of, we'll call it a triangle. There was a strong backing for that Caleb and Amy storyline.
And maybe that's why Mark and the team felt like they shouldn't do it. Maybe because they were like, well, the audience is expecting this too much. Maybe we'll go in a different direction. And that's the genius behind Mark is anything you see in the show. Okay, first off, I want to preface with this. When weird things happen on the show and characters do things that don't make sense and they're there and then suddenly they're not, this has nothing to do with what Mark and the team of writers would like to have happen with the show. This is about people's availabilities in real life.
Interesting.
So sometimes actors get busy on other projects and that. So we had this hopeful desire where the story was going. Well, now that person's no longer available. So when you see things that are like, why would they do that? It's like
Mm,
it had to do with something in the real world and not the show.
mhm. Yeah.
Aside from that, though, Mark is a genius. He's a very, very clever man and a very clever showrunner. And I think he keeps his cards and decisions quite close to his chest because he wants what's best for Heartland and the longevity of Heartland. So I think that if you think you can predict what's coming, Mark will probably find a way to surprise you and in a way that you will enjoy.
Well, and that's
Especially
probably why this show
I
is
think
as
so.
successful as it is.
The team is like we got talent right from the ground up, all the way from like the crew who are Ping A to our producers to our showrunners to the cast. Like we got talent covered when it comes to Heartland, especially our camera and production team. Like I think we have the DOPs, the directors of photographies that come through and work on our show when they're new in Alberta, they end up going off to work on Oscar award-winning projects and huge TV shows around the world, like Craig Robleski. We got talent in Alberta.
I think it's so good that you bring up schedules. So many times as fans, we don't understand all of the intricacies that go into filming and how, you may have to pivot on a storyline. just because of who's available or who's not available.
And I just wanted to mention that because I know there's a few things that have happened, especially a show that run this long, where it's like, yo, the writer didn't want this. This is just how things had to go, and they did the very best they could to, like you said, pivot.
Okay, so let's go season 18. We get a nice surprise at the end of season 18. There's a moment where Caleb and Ashley reconnect. How did it feel having Cindy back and stepping into that history together?
I've said this in just about any interview I've said where Cindy Busby came up. That woman shaped my understanding of acting and comedic timing. When they paired us together, I was such a green and novice actor. So when they were like, "Well, what do we do with Caleb? Like people like him, and Amy and Ty are together. What do we do? Oh, let's see how Caleb and Ashley work out together." Cindy shaped that. That woman is incredible and she's funny, she's charming, and she's such a connected human being that when she's on set, it doesn't matter what's happening that day or who's in it the most that day. If Cindy Busby is there, it's her set because everybody, myself included, we can't help but just want to be around her. Like she's an incredible, incredible human being. And I honestly think the only reason Caleb stayed on that show for so long and became a fan favorite is because that developed with Ashley. It was Cindy that shone the spotlight on those two characters and kept us around for so long. And so having her back, like it was pure joy. And I think we picked up right where we left off in terms of the energy between Caleb and Ashley. It's just so easy working with her, and I feel so blessed to know her.
It was a really nice surprise for us. I've got to talk to Cindy a couple of times on the podcast, and one of the most genuine, nice people you will ever meet. So I understand. She's just phenomenal.
Yep.
Okay, so season 19 brings a few fresh faces. We get a little bit of a hint at the end of the last season, but we get Nathan's sister, who is in season 19. We've got a new young ranch hand. We've got Miley, who's hanging out with the young ones. How have these additions brought maybe a new shifted energy or freshness to season 19?
Well, when a show goes on this long, you really get to know the characters, and they go through a lot of arcs and a lot of different shapes. And of course, it's television, so those arcs and those shapes are amplified, tenfold what real life is. So when you've come to know someone that well, like what else do you do with them? You create an even more ensembled cast and you bring in new people to introduce to the audience and new storylines to reconnect with the youth and the audiences, the newer audiences. It makes perfect sense. I think it was very clever of Mark. What's the young man's name? I haven't really worked with him. So Dylan, I believe. Um, I only briefly got to meet him, but he's terrific. He's
What is
terrific.
his name?
I don't know. I don't really work with
I'll look it
minors.
up, everybody.
Yeah, I mean it's a huge cast, right? So we're
Yeah.
often on set on the same day, and our characters didn't intercross. But I had the pleasure of meeting him. Seems like a really charming young man. I know he just finished, I think it's theater school from New York or something like that, and like Broadway. Really talented guy.
Yeah. Very talented. And I've loved watching him paired up with Sean Johnston, those roles, just the two of
Yeah.
them together. It's been really fun and engaging to watch the two of them.
Wow, Sean Johnson, man, I mean, that guy. I think there are only two people that, if they decided to leave the show, we couldn't go on with, and that's of course number one, Amber Marshall, Amy Fleming. The show is her, and that's all Amber. Amber is absolutely. I think if you think Amy Fleming is cool, you should hang out with Amber Marshall. Amber Marshall is a hell of a lot cooler, and then that other person is of course Sean Johnson. Without Grandpa Jack, I just think the show would roll over.
Uh, Phenomenal. Both of them, I agree. They are the backbone. It's so awesome, to have Amber's experience in real life and see how that bleeds into the show. But yeah, 100%. You mentioned earlier Spencer Lord, and had to be tricky figuring out how are we going to pivot, this romance with Amy. Um, we've got in season 19 a couple of moments. You mentioned the pilot moments, the plane. So, season 19, episode 3, we get a little bit of a fun moment where Ashley shows up with Caleb and decides that they're going to invite themselves or invite, depending on which part of the conversation we're talking about, on a weekend with Nathan and Amy. Can you talk a little bit? That whole episode was just really fun. But it also brought to light maybe some things that we learned and that Ashley learned about the history. So, what was it like filming that episode?
Well, that's the thing is like what you guys get as the finished episode is often very different than what we experience on the day because we're just a bunch of goofy kids still that love to be around each other.
Yeah.
So that was pure joy. Everything was set up as comedy and there was a hot tub and a cabin. And so we were just killing ourselves laughing and having fun all day. Like that's how the actual shape of most of the filming goes is we're just having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of like complications or like, oh man, like there's no tension between any of the cast members.
Yeah.
Like we don't, ultimately like my goal is the more they want to use Caleb, that means the more I am working, which means that's
Absolutely.
happier I am. And whatever the storyline is definitely secondary to the privilege of getting to work.
I love that she's kind of like navigating what their weekend's going to look like, and which has been Ashley and Caleb's dynamic from the
Oh,
beginning.
for sure.
And Caleb give this look kind of like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. And, everything comes from that. But that does set up a moment where you and Nathan, Caleb and Nathan, have to go back and enter the plane scene. Can you talk a little bit about what filming was like? I imagine you got to tap into some of your skills as a pilot. That whole crisis moment was pretty awesome to watch.
Okay, thank you for saying the crisis moment was awesome to watch. And no, that is not at all how an engine failure in a Cessna goes at all. It would have been perfectly fine and zero panic, and we would have just drifted down to the ground, picked a field, and got for it. I could put a Cessna down on top of a treetop canopy and walk away from the accident. So no, that was all made up. That's just TV. That's just TV. Like the reality of the situation is yeah, that's far from a scary situation as a pilot. Like that's like, oh, it's fine. Like we're fine. But it's TV, right? We got to play bigger. So we were throwing ourselves in the plane and doing all this stuff. They used a forward projection sort of technology where the plane is being included in the what they previously shot of the sky. So that was actually very challenging acting because the flight path and everything that was going to happen had already been decided. So the acting had to match what was happening. And of course, like plane's not really moving. So Spencer and I were killing ourselves, tossing ourselves around in there like animals.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things, right? There's real life and then there's TV and yeah, planes don't crash like that.
Noted. But from a pilot perspective, are you supposed to stay with the plane?
Yes, are you kidding me? Of
Okay.
course you are. Man, plane's got a transponder on it. Like, stay with the plane. No, I thought it was funny. I was like, yeah, we're not. It would be a pretty bad decision to try and hike out if you are lost in the Rockies.
Well, and I got to tell you, watching that dynamic, and it makes so much sense how that storyline between Nathan and Caleb has unfolded. I I personally think Spencer Lord is a fantastic addition to Heartland to watch. He just fits in so naturally. I watch some of the way that he responds, even with him and Amber, and I'm like, golly, it feels and it looks like these two have been acting together for a very long time. It has been an amazing addition to the show.
He's just such an extremely talented guy.
Yeah. So that we've just finished episode 4. In the States, we're going to be able to watch episode 5 next week, and then there's going to be a bit of a break where it will pick back up in January. Will we see Caleb again this season?
So he appears briefly in episode 6. That's what it is. Just very briefly. But he's there, right? So yeah, 3, 4, and 6 this year. That's just 3 episodes. It was pretty quick. I mean, it's brief. So I mean the answer's kind of I'm still telling the
But
truth,
it's such a good scene. It's such a good scene.
Yeah, I guess it was a good scene. Listen, if I'm in it, it's a good scene. If Caleb's there, it's a good scene. But
So Caleb's going to be back for another moment.
yes,
It's
another moment in
a
episode 6.
fantastic scene. I'm so excited for everybody to watch it. It's coming. We'll go with that, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so episodes three, episodes four. Do you have a highlight from either of those episodes, something that you absolutely loved?
Um, yeah, it was the plane and then being in the cabin with Cindy, everything we shot there and the hot tub scene, that was just so much fun. We were
Yeah.
dying laughing. For me, it really is about being around, the cast and crew and when we're all in a beautiful spot together having fun. Just some of those magic days where it doesn't feel like work. That was it for me this year.
Do you know how the season ends?
No.
Interesting.
I'm busy with my own stuff. I don't have time to read scripts I'm
And
not
I
in.
want to
I'm
get into
busy.
that
I'm
too.
busy. So I have no
I do.
idea. I have no idea
So
what
so
happens
when I
for the rest
tell
of the year.
you, so when I tell you to come up with a word for the finale, you could totally make it up and it would just be amazing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm too busy. I don't have time in real life to watch TV or any of that stuff.
It's good. It's great. I love that. If Heartland keeps rolling, what story ideas do you have for Caleb?
None, none. I've pitched enough. Whatever the writers want to do, I'm happy to do with. But I'm kind of, you guys
Trust the
tell me.
process,
Yeah,
right?
you guys tell me.
Yeah.
That's my job is if I'm even lucky enough to be back. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing. I don't want to be make assumptions or pressure anybody. If they would like me at the table, I'd love a seat there. And if things are going different directions, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so outside of Heartland, you've got a bunch of other stuff going on.
I
One
do.
thing that's been fun to hear about, it is on my bucket list for Christmas break, is the way home. So, what has that experience been like for you?
Another wild experience. The bulk of my career, I very much owe to Heather Conkey and Alex, her daughter, who's the showrunner. On the way home, I don't know what those women see in me, but they see they. I'm grateful they see something because they keep bringing me back to work. And honestly, my career would basically be non-existent without them. So I am endlessly grateful to Heather and Alex for having me be a part of what they're creating. It was a blast. Like
Yeah.
it was so different than Heartland.
Yeah.
They also had a lot more money, so that was a neat experience too, to see bigger toys and then much shorter. Like Heartland, we were shooting like 8 to 11 pages a day, like go go go, and then out there they were shooting like 4 or 5. I gotta admit, sometimes I got a little bored in between me, like we could probably pick this up, couldn't we?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course it was a lot more of a much more of a dramatic show, so there was a lot more. Though I didn't get to play with any horses, so that wasn't as fun.
Yeah.
But being around Kyler Lee and Sadie LaFlamme Snow and Evan Williams, like they're just incredible people. Andy McDowell was a blast, just so kind, such huge, warm, open hearts. So it grew on me really quickly. Unfortunately, this season was season 4, and that was our last season.
Yeah.
We were hoping to do a few more, but just really honored to be a part of it. Had a lot of fun.
That's so great. So, and again, I know very little about it. I know nothing about your part. So,
Good. You'll have
what
fun.
character do you play? Like, how do you fit into the storyline?
Nick Oates, he is Evan Williams and Kyler Lee's, or I guess what are the character names? Kat and Elliot's best friend from high school, and he returns home to town. Um, the show is really dramatic. They have a lot of weight in it, and characters go through a lot of pretty heavy experiences. So they needed somebody to break that up with a bunch of fun, joyful energy, and that was me. So
That's kind of
I think Nick did
Caleb-like
what
too,
he
in a
did.
way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's just sort of a natural energy that casting has experienced in me. So I tend to get a lot of roles like that or be asked to audition for a lot of roles like that.
You mentioned early on how close you and Graham are, and it's been really fun to kind of follow some of the things and the projects, ideas that you have. Can you share a little bit about that? I know that that's a big part of what you
Oh
do.
man, I've been trying to make movies and get TV shows off the ground for like the last 5 years. As a producer, I have pretty much failed at everything I've tried so far, but it doesn't deter me. I keep
Yeah.
going back with different pitch decks and approaching different networks. I'm actually headed to the national finals rodeo in Vegas next week to bring a idea down there to meet with a bunch of producers. It's a documentary series, and we have the first episode in the can. So we're just editing the teaser right now, and then taking a bunch of meetings in Vegas. maybe that'll be my first not failure. We'll see.
I love that though, that, so many of you guys that I talk to, it's like, I think it just teaches us you're going to get a no and you just keep going. You just keep going. You just keep trying things.
Yeah, that's what I do anyways. Again, it would be nice to have a win one of these days, but
I'm ready for a yes, right?
yes, we feel pretty good.
Any other projects or anything that you've got going on that we can be looking for?
In terms of acting, no, but
Anything.
you could check out Coco MLS, my real estate company in Mexico, in tandem with
Oh,
Carlos.
I've seen this.
Yeah, yeah, we were wandering it down there. Carlos is a Mexican-born, Mexican national, born and raised, extremely educated, very smart man, and he noticed that there was a opening for a niche market in Mexico. We basically just realized that there wasn't a multiple listing service down there, so we were like, let's make one, put it on the web, and see what happens. And that's been pretty good for both of us.
So if I'm visiting Mexico, where do I go?
Where do you go? You go to Barra de Navidad on the west coast side, just about 20 minutes north of Manzanillo. It's an authentic fishing village. So it has a ton of boutique tourism, a little surf town, but there is no resorts there yet. It's what Cancun would have been 20 years ago, and it's
Mm.
where Mexicans go to get away from it all.
Those are the best places too, right?
Off the beaten path a little bit.
It's kind of got the Alberta feel you're talking about, but down in Mexico,
Exactly.
which I love. So that's amazing. Well, Carrie, it has been fantastic talking to you. I'm loving season 19. It's been great to follow Caleb's journey on Heartland. And of course, you do a great, fantastic job of keeping us up to date on all the things going on in your world on Instagram. Is that where we can follow you to kind of stay up to date on what's going on in your world?
I'd say it's the only place. I don't really have any other social media platforms. I just use Instagram and really just that one account. So yeah, Instagram.
How often do you climb a wall?
Oh God, way too often. I just it's a really it's like doing a jigsaw puzzle, so you don't realize how hard you're working until afterwards. So for me, it's just an amazing way to stay in shape and to keep my mind occupied. It's very meditative. It allows me to think about other things or work out other problems in my head while I'm distracted.
It is amazing that you say that. My nephew and his wife took that up about a year ago, and they say the exact same thing. I mean, they are sending me pictures all the time and absolutely love it. And it for that reason.
Very, very therapeutic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Okay. So, reminding everybody if you are watching or want to watch Heartland, you can check it out on Up Faith and Family. That is the only place in the States that you can watch Heartland season 19. Plus, they have a ton of exclusive content that you can't find anywhere else. I'm so excited to see the rest of the season. Thank you so much for the chat. I'm excited to see. Maybe we'll hear about this rodeo project coming up, and you'll get a yes. So,
I hope so. Thank you again, Stephanie. It was lovely to be here. You're very kind and very sweet interviewer. I appreciate it very much.
well, thanks so much. Bye bye.
Bye, Stephanie.